Jana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Precharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Desatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavan Ebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we welcome everyone for our session on Bhakti Vaibhava, and we're studying the first canto, and we're looking at chapter number 9, Passing Away of Bhīṣmadeva. Right, let me go share the screen. Is it okay? Is it sharing?
Yes, Maharaj.
Let's see. Okay. Okay, lesson 5, Passing of Bhīṣmadeva. Everyone can see?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, good. So a little review, what we covered yesterday. We were speaking about, we were hearing, rather, Queen Kunti's prayer, how she wanted to lose her attachment for her family. Both sides. She had the Pandavas on one side and the Vrishnis on the other. And there was affection for both sides. So she was torn between the two. And actually, what she really wants is to become attached to Kṛṣṇa rather than all of this family. So we were discussing a little bit about what is the proper attitude for a devotee in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Is it appropriate for a devotee to have similar prayers as Queen Kunti and to lose all our attachment for the family members? Well, certainly, for some people, it's good. Srila Prabhupada certainly left home. At the same time, he was not irresponsible. He did try to make some arrangements to help them. Because actually, I was in Calcutta at the time. So Prabhupada's family were agitating. And at one point, his family, his wife and his former wife and whoever was there with her, maybe the youngest son, they were being driven out of their dwelling place and they had nowhere to go. So Prabhupada said, we have to help them because He said, I'm the head of an institution. It's a very well-known institution. And if people find out that my family are living in the street, it will not look very good. It will be very bad for public image. So Prabhupada cared about that. He thought about that. Another time, his son came. His son was at that time a young man, and he came to his father and he wanted to do business. He wanted his father to help him to start business. So Prabhupada told his son, he said, you can sell my books. So the son was, for some time, he was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books to the universities and colleges and libraries. So Prabhupada engaged his son just as he engaged his disciples, the same way, just book distribution. Interesting. So not neglectful. We cannot deny these feelings of affection. Can't be artificial. Then we talked about Maharaj Yudhishthira's dejection. One of the reasons why he was feeling dejected, because how many crores of people had died in the battle of Kurukshetra?
64.
Oh, 64, huh? Good number, huh? Quite a...
640 million.
64 crores. My goodness. So you could understand, we did that exercise yesterday about Varnashrama after a world war. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, he was in that situation. 64 crores of people had died, and then he has to rule the world. So it was very appropriate for Bhīṣmadeva to explain to him everything about Varnashram Dharma. And so that was the other part here, that we had, with that exercise, we had an opportunity to pick up on points of Varnashram Dharma. Some of the interesting points, like Sudras don't get any money. Sudras are only given food. They're given nice food and they're given clothing. They say about Mahatma Gandhi, when Mahatma Gandhi had his program, he was recruiting people, and they were told, we will give you roti, kapre, and makan. Roti, kapre, and makan. Those of you who know Hindi, you know these words, like roti, chapati, and kapre, cloth, and makan is the dwelling house. So that's all you need. You don't need anything more. If you have these things, you're sad. So the idea is Sudras shouldn't be given money, because if they have it, they'll use it for sinful activities, gambling and drinking and these kind of things. So I think that's one interesting point in Varnashram. Anybody else would like to bring up some other points about Varnashram, which they learned from Bhīṣmadeva or from Prabhupada's purports? Anything significant that you can think of? Of course, the need for Varnashram training, the arranging marriage for women. Yes, anybody?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu?
Brahmana has to read Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and Vaishya should protect the animals, and Kshatriya should protect the community. These are four basic things.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. The Vaishyas have to protect the animals and take care of the cows. And Kshatriya has to give protection. Taxation was also mentioned. The system was everybody would pay 1/4, right? 1/4 of their salary. Well, I don't know, 1/4 salary. Salary. If you receive a salary, it means you're a Sudra, right? Just a worker. But I think it's the Vaishyas are supposed to give 1/4. The farmers, they would give 1/4. And the Kshatriyas, they cannot beg, but the Brahmanas can beg. All right, any other points? Anyone? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
With your permission, can I say something?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, actually, it was mentioned that everybody wants to remain happy, and to remain happy, we have to please the Lord. And whatever things are available, they are available by the mercy of Lord. So this point was mentioned that everybody, the king, the spiritual master, the father, they have to put their dependents in the service of the Lord. So this is something which basically a qualified person like a king or father or spiritual master, they have to ensure. And if they are not able to ensure, there will be total chaos and there will be a lot of unhappiness and misery. So this was one of the points. And the second point was that women should basically be quite like it is used that they should be shy. Like women should be shy. They should not basically not shy. So that way it was explained that it will result into adultery and that kind of thing. The culture which basically India is trying to imbibe from the advanced countries, that women should be shy. That kind of thing I got from the verse, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very nice of you to share this with us. Any response from the ladies? Of course, ladies are naturally shy. Most ladies, unless they're brought up in a very materialistic, hedonistic society, generally women by nature are shy. They learn from their mother. And people should be taught, Prabhu was saying people should be taught to depend on the Lord and whatever is provided by nature, by the goodwill of the Lord. We spoke about that yesterday, about the industries and factories, and they're not really necessary. We can get everything just simply by depending on the Lord, depending on nature. Everything is provided for our need. We don't need all these chemical factories. We don't need slaughterhouses. We don't need shopping malls. Okay, we'll go ahead. Now, here's Grandfather Bishma. Oh, what is this? Okay, chapter 9, overview. We heard about Grandfather Bishma instructing on Varnashram Dharma. And then at a certain point, time comes, Grandfather Bishma feels it's actually time for him to fix his mind or to depart from the world, and he prepares himself for departing from this world, right? Because the period of Uttarayana came, the sun changed its direction, and Bhishma, this is a time when he was planning to depart from the world. He'd already spoken for many days and on many different topics and given a lot of instruction and advice to Maharaj Yudhisthira and pacified his mind. And now it's time for him to make his very glorious departure from the world. So text 29 to 34 describe how he withdraws his consciousness from the world and focuses it on Lord Kṛṣṇa. And of course, Grandfather Bhishma is very fortunate because he has Lord Kṛṣṇa standing in front of him. So he's able to really focus on Lord Kṛṣṇa. Lord Kṛṣṇa is there, it's described Chaturbhuja, four-armed form, appearing before Grandfather Bhishma. And not only does he focus his eyes looking at the form of Kṛṣṇa, but he fixes his mind on Krishna and he begins to recount some of the different pastimes which grandfather Bhishma had, or even sometimes pastimes which he was not present, but which he remembers. And he recounts them in the presence of all the devotees. Remember, Vyasadeva's there, and so many great sages have all come to see grandfather Bhishma, because Bhishma is, he's like a demigod. Although he's in a human form, he's like on the level of Shiva and Brahma. He's actually one of the 8 Vasus, but he'd taken this human form, and he's been given the blessing by his father, his great father, Maharaj Santanu, that he can remain alive as long as he wants. And when he's ready to depart from the world, he can depart. So although his body was filled with arrows and he's laying on this bed of arrows, not comfortable, but he's able to maintain his life, and he is waiting for this auspicious moment. Lord Krishna has come in front of him, and Bhishma fixes his mind on Lord Krishna. So that's 29 to 34. Then 35 to 49, we have Bhishma offering his prayers to Krishna, right? Describing his different pastimes. We mentioned one of the descriptions which Bhishma has, how he remembers Arjuna as his chariot driver. Rather, Krishna as the chariot driver of Arjuna. And he even describes Lord Krishna by the name Vijay Shaka, which means that one who is the friend of Vijay Saki, the one who is the friend of Arjuna. So he described Lord Krishna in that way. And Prabhupada explains to us how Lord Krishna likes to have himself described in relation to his devotees. We know Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gave us so many nice songs with the names of Krishna, like Yashomati Nandana Braja Paranakara, these kind of songs. Udila Aruna Purababaje. So many songs, the names of Krishna, and many of the names of Krishna are in relation to his devotees and to his different pastimes. So Krishna takes pleasure in that, in being connected with his devotees. So there are many verses, we'll go through them a little bit, and then at the end of the section, we'll hear how grandfather Bhishma departs from the world, and then Maharaj Yudhisthira has to begin ruling the kingdom according to the instructions he'd received from grandfather Bhishma. So this is the main points of the chapter. So we request you just take a few minutes just to read over verses 33, 34, and 38, and give us some points about Bhīṣmadev's relationship with the Lord. Right? Can you just look through these few verses? 33, 34. And how Bhīṣmadeva had named Lord Krishna like that in relation to Arjuna. Yes? And anybody? Do you have anything you've picked up anything about Bhīṣmadev's relationship with Lord Krishna?
Maharaj, two of them have raised hands. Sachitanaya Prabhu and Veera Gopal Prabhu.
Yes? Veera Gopal Prabhu?
My pranams, Maharaj. So I'm just reading verse 934. And in here, his relationship is very intimate and he's so absorbed in Sri Krishna that he notices every minute detail of his whilst he's on the battlefield. So this is quite intense. The only thing I can compare it to is when in the material world, you know, when a boy is in love with a girl and a girl is in love with a boy, they observe every small detail of each. And he's so immersed in it. That's the point from 934 I could gather.
Okay. So certainly Bhīṣmadev's mind is very absorbed in the Lord. He's appreciating all of the different features of the Lord. Maybe you could just tell us some of those features?
Yes, he's saying the flowing hair of Lord Krishna. He's looking at the hair and the color of the hair and how the dust, it's become changed its color because of the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And then the sweat on his face, sweat beads on his face. And he sees them as decoration. This is so beautiful. Intensified by the wounds, by
the wounds, yes.
Yes, that his own arrows, Bhīṣmadev's arrows, and he's saying that Krishna enjoyed them, and Bhīṣmadev is enjoying seeing him enjoying it. And here it is again, the gopis and Krishna, how they intensify each other's pleasure. You know, their pleasure is intensified by seeing others' pleasure. It seems to be, for me at least, another one of those examples.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Someone else had their hand up?
Maharaj, Danda Pranam. Sachitanaya Das. Maharaj, this is not regarding to this particular question. I have some doubts regarding Bhīṣmadeva was waiting for Uttarayana. So here in Sanskrit words, Uttarayana has two meanings. One thing is Uttarayana means sun moves from south pole to north pole. That is Uttarayana, Dakshinayana to Uttarayana. And Uttarayana has another meaning that the son of Uttara was saved by, Parikshit was saved by Kṛṣṇa. That's why Krishna's another name is Uttarayana. So Bhīṣmadeva is waiting for Kṛṣṇa, or Bhīṣmadeva is waiting for the time that sun moved from south pole to north pole. So can you, Maharaj, please clarify that one?
Well, you can say both were achieved. So, of course, Lord Krishna had been there for some time. Lord Krishna had come there with Maharaj Yudhisthira, so he spent many days there hearing Bhishma give instruction. So it's not that he was just waiting for Lord Krishna to come and then he departs. But certainly after he'd finished giving instruction, then he took the opportunity to concentrate fully on Lord Krishna, and he took advantage of the presence of Lord Krishna there to absorb his thinking, feeling, willing in Lord Krishna. His mind fully focused and entered fully into Lord Krishna, on Lord Krishna. So he certainly took advantage of the presence of Lord Krishna, but he also took advantage of that auspicious time of the movement of the sun. So both purposes were achieved. He waited for both, right? Certainly as a devotee, he doesn't need to wait for Uttarayana. He doesn't need to wait for the sun to change direction. Prabhupada explains, and Lord Kṛṣṇa also explains in the Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter, that for the devotee, they can leave the body anytime. There's no question of inauspiciousness for a pure devotee. One in Krishna consciousness, he can leave the body anytime. He doesn't have to wait for Uttarayana to leave the body.
So in that way, he was not waiting for the time. He was waiting for Kṛṣṇa only, right?
Yeah, but I told you, Krishna had already been there a long time.
But he wanted, so that he wanted at the last moment of his life, he could see Kṛṣṇa face to face, then leave his body.
Well, of
So
course.
he was waiting for
Of course,
that.
that's described in great detail.
Yes.
That's the whole point. We're explaining that. But he also took advantage of that time.
But for a transcendental devotee, he does not need any.
Yeah, he doesn't
time.
just to show the example to others, because others may criticize. Because he has that power that he can leave the body at will. So he chose to wait for that particular time when he could, for the auspicious time, because it's an example to others, other mystic yogis, not just everyone, but mystic yogis in particular, they want to leave the body at that particular time. So he's showing the example to others. I explained this yesterday. I explained Prabhupada left the body in Vrindavan to show example to others. Now, he didn't have to leave the body in Vrindavan. He can leave the body anywhere, but for an example, to teach by example. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, it describes the great souls. They have no duties to perform, but still they do everything. Why? For the purpose of teaching others by their example. And we have in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the example, Maharaj Janaka. And then Lord Krishna said he himself performs his duty to teach others for the purpose of showing the example. So here we have also grandfather Bhishma leaving the body. He's showing an example for some people who are not so devoted, those people who may not be such devotees. But for the pure devotee, definitely it doesn't matter. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I have one question. The point permission is there. May I ask?
All right.
From the example of Prabhupada that you mentioned that he went to Vrindavan in his last days. So for us, regarding the application of these principles, does it also mean for us that if we are living in our last years, or we should also stay in Vrindavan so that we depart from Vrindavan or something like that? Is it
Well,
correct?
certainly it's recommended.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Kṛṣṇa Maharaj,
Yes.
Bhīṣmadeva had got relations with the Lord, and verse number 33, as a servitor, he had thrown the arrow, and Lord took as if somebody throwing the flower on him, offering the flower. And in verse number 34, piercing of the arrows to the Lord, he felt like biting of Financy. And in verse number 38, Bhīṣmadeva has got a relationship with the Lord, fighting as an enemy. So there are 3 kinds of relationship with the Lord Bhīṣmadeva has got.
Okay, one is as like a lover.
One is lover, second is servitorship, and third is as an enemy.
The enemy, right. Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to explain more about how Bhīṣmadeva is the enemy of the Lord? I thought Bhīṣmadeva was a devotee.
The Lord has got different kind of mellows. So he had got that kind of mellow, Virras, and that he had played a role for Veeras as enemy.
Okay. Yes, certainly Kṛṣṇa takes pleasure in having this relationship with Bhishma. That although Bhishma is on the other side of Lord Kṛṣṇa and he's a devotee, it's very pleasing to Kṛṣṇa to fight with his devotee. Kṛṣṇa takes pleasure with it in this, that his devotee is fighting against him. And we can see in the picture, in this illustration on the slide just now, how Lord Kṛṣṇa is coming towards Bhishma carrying the chariot wheel. That Bhishma vowed that tomorrow I'm going to kill Arjuna, and he had special arrows ready to kill Arjuna. But then Arjuna, and he gave the arrows to Duryodhana, and Duryodhana was keeping them, and he said, tomorrow I'll give you them, you kill the 5 Pandavas. And then what happened was, that night Arjuna came and he asked Duryodhana that, you know, you said you'd give me something, can you give me those 5 arrows you've got? And so Duryodhana had to give the arrows to Arjuna. So this was Lord Kṛṣṇa's trickery. Kṛṣṇa had told Arjuna, go and get those arrows, take them from Duryodhana. And so then Bhishma heard about this, so he understood the next day. He said, tomorrow Kṛṣṇa will break his promise. Lord Kṛṣṇa had promised not to fight, but we see him picking up the chariot wheel. He's coming towards grandfather Bhishma. He wants as if to kill him with the chariot wheel. And grandfather Bhishma is surrendering. He's not trying to resist. He's not trying to fight back. He's offering him his body. He's happy to be killed by Lord Kṛṣṇa. He's willing to let Lord Kṛṣṇa kill him. But of course, that just at that point, the battle ended and Bhishma was saved. And Arjuna, he's trying to stop Lord Kṛṣṇa. He's trying to hold back Kṛṣṇa, but Kṛṣṇa is angry. He's rushing towards grandfather Bhishma. So this is all for the pleasure of Lord Kṛṣṇa. This is his enjoyment. We heard grandfather, what is Bhishma's relationship with Kṛṣṇa? He is a servant, right? Dasharas. And his service is to give pleasure to Kṛṣṇa. And his service is to fight with Kṛṣṇa. And Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma's secondary rasa is chivalrous. Grandfather Bhishma is chivalrous in his behavior with Lord Kṛṣṇa. They have this wonderful relationship. So grandfather Bhishma is very, very mannerly, respectful, and he's firing the arrows, and the arrows are like someone offering flowers to Kṛṣṇa. But the arrows are piercing the body of Lord Kṛṣṇa. And Kṛṣṇa's body is, we heard, Kṛṣṇa's body is smeared with blood, but it looks more beautiful to grandfather Bhishma. And grandfather Bhishma, at the time of leaving the body, he's remembering these details of Lord Kṛṣṇa. His hair dust-colored, ash-colored with the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses, and his beads of sweat because of driving the chariot and now picking up the chariot wheel, so beads of sweat. And he dropped his outer garment as he came running towards grandfather Bhishma. He drops his outer garment. And grandfather Bhishma is remembering all of this at the time of death. This is how his mind is occupied in remembering Lord Kṛṣṇa. So this is very important, to fix the mind on Kṛṣṇa, to reflect on all of the different dealings. Right? So this was one of the pastimes grandfather Bhishma was remembering at the point just before he leaves the body. What else did grandfather Bhishma think about before he left the body? Anyone else remembers some other pastimes he was thinking about? Who else did he think about?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Bhīṣmadeva thought about gopis.
What did he think about the gopis?
Maharaj, I am not really remember, but I just remember that he thought about gopis at that time.
Anybody else is there would like to tell us why Bhishma brought up the gopis? Anyone? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances. In text 40, Bhīṣmadeva says his smile attracted the gopis.
Who's smiling?
And the Kṛṣṇa, whose
Krishna's
motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajasthan, the gopis.
okay. Yes. So Krishna's. Why is Bhishma remembering this? Bhishma's a brahmachari. Why he's thinking about the gopis?
Maharaj, in purport, Srila Prabhupada said because their behavior is praiseworthy because of their still more purifying loving service to the Krishna.
Yeah, they're even on a higher level than Arjuna.
Then Arjuna.
Even Arjuna, he's not on the level of these gopis. These gopis had the highest love of Krishna. Arjuna's a devotee and he's a friend of Krishna, but he's not on that level of the gopis who gave everything, who sacrificed everything for Krishna. So Bhishma is remembering these gopis. The mood is that he wants to, that they will also bless him. He wants to get the blessings of these gopis, that as they gave everything for Krishna, he also wants to have, he wants to follow their example. Just like the gopis' minds are so absorbed in thought of Krishna, so Bhishma wants to have also absorb his mind, just like the gopis. Right? And then another pastime mentioned.
He remember Arjuna as Parthasarathi because he was seeing Krishna from front side, but Arjuna was not able to see Krishna from the side. He was seeing just Krishna from the back side. So in that sense.
Yes. Yes, that's right. So who's relishing the form of Krishna more? Arjuna or Bhishma?
Bhīṣmadeva, because he was seeing him from front side and he was seeing
Bhishma
all his beauty.
He's able to see directly Lord Krishna because Lord Krishna is driving the chariot. But Arjuna's behind Krishna. He can only see the back of Krishna. So Bhishma is more fortunate than Arjuna. He's able to relish directly the form of Krishna, the features of Krishna. Anything else?
Maharaji also, Bhīṣmadeva, remember about the Bhagavad Gita, which Sri Krishna told to Arjuna.
Yes, right. What happened?
Because when Arjuna got perplexed about seeing his own kinsman, then to make him out of ignorance, Krishna himself spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhīṣmadeva was remembering that.
Right. Right. Arjuna says to Krishna, bring the chariot into the middle. I want to see everyone who's assembled here. And Lord Krishna pulls the chariot into the middle and said, there's Bhishma, there's Drona, and there's all these different, all the other different sons of Dhritarashtra. And then Arjuna becomes overwhelmed and perplexed. That should I fight? Should I not fight? And Krishna has to speak Bhagavad Gita to enlighten him. Right.
One question, with your kind permission, may I ask?
Sorry?
May I ask one question, Maharaj?
Yes, please.
Maharaj, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the first day of the battle. Is this correct understanding?
Spoken when?
On the first day of the battle.
Yes, before the battle began, before the battle, prior to the battle, Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita. Right.
And another thing, Maharaj, like Bhishma gave the arrows to Duryodhan. So why did, just curious to know why Duryodhan gave the arrows to Arjun? Because Duryodhan was cunning.
Oh, there was because Duryodhan had promised Arjuna that if you want anything, if I can do anything for you, you ask me, you come, and I'll be happy to do it. So Krishna told Arjuna, you go and get those arrows.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
One more thing which is mentioned also in the prayers of Grandfather Bhishma, he mentions also about the Rajasuya sacrifice. That Maharaj Yudhisthira performed this, so Bhishma remembers this. All the great sages and everybody had come, great kings, they all came to attend the Rajasuya sacrifice. And at that time, everybody honored Lord Kṛṣṇa. Not everyone accepted him as the personality of Godhead, but they all understood he was a very great personality, very powerful personality. And so these things are mentioned in Bhishma's prayers as he prepares to depart.
Maharaj, can I ask a question?
Please.
Maharaj, in the last incident, slok 41, in the translation it is said that Bhīṣmadeva said this happened during my presence. This Rashtriya Yagya activity. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. But in purport, Srila Prabhupada start with, after gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira performed the Rajasuya sacrifice. So Maharaj, these two things is not, I am not able to understand.
I'm also not able to understand this. I was reading this myself this morning and I was thinking about this. Now, how could this happen? It's an interesting point. Yeah, I don't know myself, you know, because I also thought the Rajasuya sacrifice is performed after the Battle of Kurukshetra. And certainly we know Maharaj Yudhisthira did. He performed, I think, 3 Rajasuya sacrifices after the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Grandfather Bhishma is on the bed of arrows. I don't see how he could have attended, you know. It's puzzling. So I'm sorry, Prabhu, I'm not able to answer that point.
Oh, okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
But we do know Grandfather Bhishma he does pray about the Rajasuya sacrifice. He does mention that, right?
Yes.
Text 41, is it?
Yes.
Where was the Rajasuya sacrifice performed?
It will be in Hastinapur. Or maybe it doesn't mention. It says, at the Rajasuya Yagya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa was worshipped one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So, as Prabhu said, in the purport, Prabhupada writes that after gaining victory in the Battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhisthira performed the Rajasuya sacrifice.
Maybe he did it at Kurukshetra.
Well, yeah.
Maharaj, can I
Yes?
say? In Mahabharata, when Pandavas were established in Indraprastha, so Narada Muni had instructed them to do this yagya, and on this yagya there were all these great personalities. Also Bhīṣmadeva was there, and he stand up when Shishupal was wanted protested to that Krishna should be worshipped as first. So Bhīṣmadeva stand up and protested against Shishupal. So I think this was the kind of sacrifice there, which is remembering Bhīṣmadeva, because there was Lord Krishna was there established as the Lord, as the first person which should be offered the honor.
Yes,
You know?
right. Agra Puja.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is, Prabhu, you see, Prabhupada is saying here that this yagya was performed after the battle of Kurukshetra.
Yeah.
So
Yes, maybe there's some other yagya after that also. I doesn't know. I don't.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not so clear. I'll try to find out. I'll ask some other people who know more. Maybe someone can enlighten me. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Let's see. Oh, well, it comes time. Oh, let's go through the slides first of all. Would someone like to read here?
Krishna was taking pleasure when his devotee Bhishma was piercing him with arrows. Actually, he was taking pleasure. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given this example, that when a lover kisses the opposite lover, even sometimes kissing, there is blood come out. Still, it is pleasing. The lover does not complain. Viryaras.
So this is the arrows of Arjuna, and Bhishma's arrows fired into Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Bhishma's firing arrows into Lord Krishna, but he's not thinking he's firing arrows. He's thinking he's firing beautiful flowers at Lord Krishna. He's firing them with love. So this is Viryaras, right? This is chivalry. Go ahead.
When Krishna enjoys with his devotees the fighting with piercing Krishna's body, that is being enjoyed by Krishna. I think I have explained this in Bhagavat. So impersonal, without any variety, nobody can live. Even Krishna, the Supreme Lord, he can also say he wants variety. No burn.
Krishna enjoys variety. So he enjoys when his devotee becomes his enemy and he has to fight them. It's for his pleasure. And Bhishma, he's the servant. He's in Dasharas. His job is to give service to Krishna. So being the enemy of Krishna, that's his service. Very, very wonderful that you can be the devotee and be Krishna's enemy, fighting against him. Okay, another slide. Someone else can read.
His throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of the Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws soft roses upon him. The Lord enjoyed the wounds created by his great devotee Bhīṣmadeva, and because Bhīṣmadeva is a devotee in the selfless relations, he fixes up his mind on Krishna in that wounded condition. 9.34.
So Bhīṣmadeva, because he's a great devotee and he's in this really, this is his meditation. He's meditating. His mind is actually absorbed. I think after the battle, when Lord Krishna comes before him, there at Kurukshetra, Lord Krishna, after the battle, they're described as being very, Maharaj Yudhisthira was like Kuvera. And so they were coming very with great opulence, because Maharaj Yudhisthira he'd become the emperor, and Lord Krishna had come with them, and he'd come with Arjuna. So they were all well dressed, and they must have been taking care of their wounds and there'd be no blood and everything on his face. But Bhishma, in his mind, he's remembering these features of the Lord as he had appeared before him during the battle. And his meditation is on Krishna as in this way, as the driver of Arjuna's chariot. Someone like to read? Another person?
A genuine relation of the living being with the Supreme Lord can take any form out of the 5 principal rasas, and it does not make any difference in transcendental degree to the genuine devotee. Bhīṣmadeva is a concrete example of this and should be carefully observed how the great general is transcendentally related to the Lord.
Yeah. Someone may feel that, oh, he's only in Dasharas. Oh, he's not a gopi. But still, he's a great devotee. We have to understand Krishna likes variety and he enjoys all these different relationships. Not that everybody can be a gopi and enjoy as the gopis enjoy. It's a special ras. And so the variety, Krishna wants he enjoys variety. And Bhishma is a great devotee and he's providing great pleasure for Lord Krishna. Someone can read this?
In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana.
Go ahead.
And while there he shortened the lifespan of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna.
Could you explain to us about this merciful glance of Lord Krishna? And this is the words of Grandfather Bhishma, right?
Right.
Grandfather Bhishma is describing about the merciful glance of Lord Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, here the Lord has glanced over the grandfather Bhishma. And the Lord Bhishma has got the benediction that he will die at his own will. By the glance of the Lord on Bhishma, the life of the Bhishma is also shortened.
Okay. So definitely the glance of the Lord on Bhishma is very good for Grandfather Bhishma. What about the other kings?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I say something?
Yes.
Maharaj, actually it was the merciful glance because all those who have taken the darshan of Lord, they had basically got liberated, whether they were on the enemy side. So this was the benediction that the merciful glance, even though they are acting as Krishna's enemy or they are in the enemy's side, but the merciful glance means that if they have taken the darshan of the Lord, they are liberated.
Yes. All of those who died in the battle, right? All 64 crore. They all got their swarup, right? If they died in the presence of Krishna, they were able to attain their swarup. That meant that they could go back to Godhead. Some would go to Vaikuntha and some may even went to Goloka, according to their swarup. Because it's the glance of the Lord, the merciful glance of Krishna, that they get liberation. So all of those people, this was Krishna's mercy. Krishna had come in the battlefield to give mercy to all those taking part in the battle, that they could all get their swarup. They'd all come to take part in the war, in the great battle, and because Lord Krishna is there, and because they're able to see Lord Krishna, and they're killed in the battle, they got their swarup. They went back to Godhead. Very merciful of Lord Krishna. And Grandfather Bhishma, of course, he's also very fortunate because Lord Krishna had personally come there to see Grandfather Bhishma on his bed of arrows and to appear before him at the time of the departure of Grandfather Bhishma, as Grandfather Bhishma prepared to leave this body, to leave this world. All right, is it clear? We'll go ahead. Someone else read?
Fulfilling my desire. Go ahead, Mother, you go ahead.
Thank you for listening. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing to his first promise, he got down from a chariot, took up his wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garments on the way.
Fulfilling my desire. What was the desire? Bhishma's desire.
To fight with Krishna, or that was my desire. That's why.
Bhishma was desiring to fight with Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
The desire of Bhishma was that Lord should break his promise that he will not take up the weapons during the battle.
Right. It was the desire of Bhishma that either Arjuna will die or Krishna must take part in the battle. And Krishna had promised he wouldn't take part. So did he take part or didn't he?
Yes.
Did he take part?
Yes, Maharaj.
What did he do?
He picked up the wheel and he tried to hit Bhīṣmadeva.
He had spoken whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and that way he fought.
He spoke the Bhagavad Gita, in that way he fought?
He spoke to Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and he motivated Arjuna. Arjuna was not willing to fight, and that's why he fought, and in that we can say that he fought like that.
No, he inspired Arjuna to fight.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. That's still, I don't think that against him for inspiring Arjuna to fight. I don't think that, but you may say like that. Interesting. Okay, so just like a lion goes to kill an elephant, usually the lion's more powerful. They're the king of the jungle. The elephants are big, but the lions can kill them. So Krishna came running with his chariot wheel. And then Grandfather Bhishma, he's just ready to surrender. Yes? Go ahead, Mataji, you can read more. Hare Krishna.
May I read, Maharaj?
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Krishna actually did not break his promise. He did not accept any weapon, but he simply showed Bhishma that I have come to kill you with this wheel of the chariot. This Sudarshan Chakra is different. These are the reciprocation. Krishna can do anything for his devotee. Lecture, Montreal, August 23, 1968.
Okay, so this is what Prabhupada said. Krishna didn't break his promise, but he just came with a wheel and said, I've come to kill you, but he didn't do it. But if he'd come with Sudarshan Chakra, that would have been a different thing. Krishna didn't bring his Sudarshan Chakra to the battle of Kurukshetra. Krishna can do anything for the devotee. He thought Bhishma's promise is more important than my promise, right? He wanted Bhishma to keep his promise. Grandfather Bhishma promised Duryodhana that either I will kill Arjuna or Krishna will break his promise. So Krishna broke his promise. And in that way, he allowed Grandfather Bhishma to keep his promise. The word of the devotee meant more than Krishna's own word. Yes? Someone please read.
The Lord was so angry that Arjun checked him when he was moving towards Bhīṣmadeva. But in spite of Arjun's checking, he proceeded towards Bhīṣmadeva as a lover goes to a lover without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his determination was to kill Bhīṣmadeva, but factually it was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. 9.38 purpose.
So, in spite of Arjuna's checking, Arjuna, he's trying to keep Krishna back. He doesn't want Krishna to break his promise. He remembers Krishna promised not to fight. And Arjuna thought, oh, this is not good. Krishna's breaking his promise. And he's trying to hold Krishna back. But Krishna, no, I'm not gonna let him get away with this. You know? Krishna's a little angry. The Lord was angry. Arjuna was checking him. And he's coming, but of course it's the loving relationship between Krishna and Bhishma. And Arjuna, of course, he has also his loving relationship with Krishna. Arjuna is trying to hold Krishna back, but Krishna is, no, I'm going to go. And Prabhupada said, like a lover goes to a lover without caring for hindrances. So this determination actually is to please him as a great devotee. And it's very pleasing to Grandfather Bhishma. How do we know it's pleasing? Because he's remembering this at the time of his death, at the time of his departure. This is his meditation. He's meditating how the Lord came before him like this. How fortunate. Now, is Grandfather Bhishma feeling repentant about his actions, about his dealing with Lord Krishna? Remember, he'd been firing arrows into the body of Lord Krishna. So maybe could we think there's some repentance on the part of Grandfather Bhishma?
No, Maharaj.
You don't think so?
He was more pleased rather than feeling repentance.
He was what?
More pleased.
He was not pleased?
He was getting more pleasure by remembering this incident rather than feeling repentance.
I'm not understanding. I couldn't hear you clearly what you say, Prabhu. I'm sorry.
Maharaj, I'm trying to say that Bhīṣmadeva, he felt more pleasure by remembering the whole incidents.
Bhīṣmadeva felt pleasure remembering the incident. Yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, he did. Yes, definitely, that's true. He felt pleasure remembering the incident. And Krishna, did Krishna also feel pleasure in the incident?
Yes, Maharaj.
How do you know?
He was in Veeras.
Yeah. Here we see Krishna's angry. But is his anger with Arjuna or is his anger with Bhishma?
Arjuna.
Yeah, it seems to be that his anger is with Arjuna. Arjuna is trying to hold him back. But it's a wonderful Leela anyway. There's a lot of rasa there, different rasas. Someone please read this next statement.
There was no need to come before Bhīṣmadeva with blood and wounds, but he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasa, or relationship between Lord and the servitor.
Bhīṣmadeva wants to see Krishna with all these wounds. But when he sees these wounds on the body of the Lord. Now, this is another thing. How can we understand the wounds on the body of Krishna? Isn't Krishna's body transcendental?
Yes.
Can someone explain?
Maharaj, can I try?
Yes, please.
Just I'm thinking his Lila Shakti will produce this these wounds and blood just to make the Lila more ecstatic for his devotees.
Okay, yes. But actually the body of, what is the form of Krishna? What is it constituted of?
Satchidananda.
Satchidananda, right, yes. It's spiritual energy, but you could, as Prabhu said, maybe it's the Lila Shakti of the Lord that he allows these wounds to appear on his body and blood to be there, just to satisfy the mind of Bhishma, that Bhishma can remember the Lord, the transcendental beauty of the Lord, decorated by all these wounds. Very unusual, very unique rasa, transcendental rasa between the Lord and his devotees. So this, of course, is the meditation of Grandfather Bhishma. At the time of his quitting the body, he's remembering Lord Krishna as Partha Sarati. You can see in this slide, Lord Krishna holding the whip in one hand and the reins of the chariot in the other, and driving the chariot of Arjuna. And this is how it said Grandfather Bhishma, he's liberated to a planet in Vaikuntha where the Lord appears as Partha Sarati.
Maharaj, could I ask a question?
Please.
So when we get to the point of departing from these bodies, and of course our agenda is to remember Krishna. One way that we can do this is by remembering all the services that we did, that we performed as devotees, and the reciprocation that Krishna gave us for those services. I mean, that seems to be like a principle. You know, here, I mean, we may not be on that platform of being able to wound Krishna's body with arrows, or bite him to gopis, but we've rendered service. So it seems like that might be a good way to channel our mental energy at the end.
Oh, you're saying our mental energy, channel our mental energy into remembering our own activities and our own service to the Krishna consciousness movement.
Well, it was rendered to please Krishna, and the service was rendered to please Krishna. If we had that mood, then maybe there's some legitimacy in that. It might be an easier pathway. Like Prabhupada said in a conversation with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you know, that he asked, I don't know if I should tell the whole thing, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj, this is in the beginning days of Juhu. I might have told this in this class, I'm not sure. In the beginning days of Juhu, Tamal Krishna Maharaj exclaimed, "How can I think of Krishna? My mind is simply filled with temple finances." And so then Prabhupada responded by saying, yes, many lifetimes we've wasted on ourselves. Just in this one lifetime, we can dedicate heart and soul to pushing on Lord Chaitanya's movement. Then at the end, even if we're not completely perfect, Lord Chaitanya will personally come and take us back to Godhead. So, you know, I saw this with my friend Nirguna, and it seems to be some legitimacy in this. You know, I mean, that was what the kind of the discussions that would take place. You know, devotees would call Nirguna from around the world, and they would always talk about the service they did together. And there was no question in anyone's mind at the end, he had achieved a very high level of Krishna consciousness and went back to Godhead, because he was a very dedicated servant of Prabhupada's mission. So there seems to be legitimacy in that. You know, I mean, we may come to the platform where we're actually meditating upon the pastimes of the Lord, and that's ideal for sure. but that's up to Krishna. Whether we come to that platform, if we can't demand that. And but the mercy that we've gotten over the years is with the service that he's enabled us to do.
Yes.
Like he enabled Bhīṣmadeva to attack him with arrows. And that was his little chunk of service, a very unique service.
Yes, very interesting. Interesting thought about how we could actually apply this kind of principle in our own life, in our own preparation for leaving the world. Is it enough? Are we allowed just to meditate on our own service, which we did? Or do we want to just think only of Krishna's Leela? Think about Grandfather Bishma and Haridas Thakur.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I was just thinking, I was just remembering the last verse of the Isha Upanishad. There's a prayer like that. It says, please, my dear Lord, please remember all that I have done for you. It's actually Isha Upanishad, the last verse.
Yes, in Sri Isha Upanishad, right. Yes, right. Please remember all that I have done for you, right. That's the prayers offered at the time of leaving the body. Thank you, Prabhu. Very good, yes.
It kind of, it's so endearing, to our hearts, because we work so hard, to push the movement on. And it's something that's very close to our hearts. So it seems like a natural, it's not that we don't think of Krishna, but I mean, just like you got Pankaj Jangri and Jananivas, they've done almost 50 years of worship of Radhamadeva. So obviously, if they think of Radhamadeva in the service, it's not different. But also, to do the services, we've chanted the holy name, and the holy name is not different than Krishna. And, so there's many different instances, where we were in ecstasy with the reciprocation Krishna gave us that we can think about. It's a possibility. I don't have any reference, but it seems to follow this train of thought that we're discussing now.
Yes, it's an interesting application of the principle which has been applied here by Grandfather Bishma. Certainly he's remembering his dealings with the Lord. So in the same way, we can also reflect on our own service, whatever contributions we made. They may seem somewhat insignificant, but at the time of death, whatever little service, whatever we've done, it can give us the greatest benefit.
It may not be too long before this happens, too. So, at least for some of us.
Yeah, we have to prepare. Anytime. Well, that's a point that even for young people, you don't know when it's going to come. Even young people also die sometimes. What to speak of old? Of course, old people for certain coming quick. Any other comments on this from?
So, Maharaj, from your side, which is the best possible preparation for the final examination?
What is the best possible preparation for the final examination? I would say the best possible preparation for the final examination is to really absorb yourself fully in devotional service. Whatever service you're doing, just really absorb yourself into it, get right into it, and do as much service as you can. And utilize every moment in Krishna consciousness, and don't waste time.
Sorry, Maharaj, I have another question in this continuation only. Like during the last moments, people I have seen with my own eyes, they are bedridden and their bodily movements and mind is also not functional. So in that bedridden situation or probably a diseased condition, how a man can do the service of the Lord?
All right, that's when you're in the final stage of life, when you're preparing to leave the body. Yes, it's very difficult. But we need to have the blessing of devotees. We should have devotees to come to chant. That's why I said it's best to leave the body in a holy place, like Vrindavan or Mayapur, and then devotees will come and they will chant for you regularly, or they will read. Just like when Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in his final days, he had all the time kirtan. We were always going in Prabhupada's room to do kirtan. He wanted kirtan all the time. Even when he came into Mumbai, Juhu, before he went to Vrindavan, we were going to his room to do kirtan. There was a schedule. Prabhupada wanted kirtan.
You were there? You were there in Vrindavan when he left, Maharaj?
I had the unfortunate experience. I think I left the day before Prabhupada left. Because what happened, you know, nobody knew what was happening, and I had a party and we had things pending, and I saw Jayapataka Maharaj came, Jayapataka Maharaj left, and I thought, well, Jayapataka Maharaj is leaving. I thought, I guess it's okay, you know, I guess it's okay to go, because for some time Prabhupada had been sick and we didn't know he was going to leave or not. We didn't know what was happening. You know, I never thought Prabhupada was going to leave. I didn't think Prabhupada was going to leave us. I was shocked when I heard he'd left. So we came all the way back. We left, but we came back.
You were at your Sankirtan party in India?
Yeah. So I forgot what I was talking about now.
Well, the consciousness at the time of death. Primarily,
right. Somebody's sick, you want to come to the holy place, and the holy place people will come and chant. And we were always coming to chant for Prabhupada. At the time Prabhupada left the body, you know, Pradyumna was sitting there reading from the purports of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Prabhupada wanted to hear. So Pradyumna sat there and read Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's purports, and devotees were doing kirtan, and they were holding the pictures of the deities in front of Prabhupada, and he had garlands from the deities around his neck, just like Grandfather Bhishma. Grandfather Bhishma, he had everything was centered on Kṛṣṇa. His eyes were fully focused on Lord Kṛṣṇa. His mind was fully absorbed in thought of Kṛṣṇa. All of his senses were fully in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So in that manner, he left the world. Where there's Kṛṣṇa, there's no Maya. So this is the point. I was talking about Gunagrahi Maharaj yesterday. He also left the body in Vrindavan. And devotees, I wasn't there, but the devotees, they were doing just kirtan all the time for a long time. They were doing kirtan for him. And he was a kirtanier. He was into it. He was doing kirtan with them. But at the end, of course, he couldn't, but he could hear the kirtan. So that's what you want. You want to be, if we're helpless at the time of death, just like Madhavendra Puri, it's described, Madhavendra Puri was leaving the body. Ishwara Puri was taking care of him. And Madhavendra Puri, as he was leaving the body, you know, he couldn't control his organs and so on. And Ishwara Puri was taking care of him, and at the same time reminding him of Kṛṣṇa. All the time reminding him of Kṛṣṇa. So because Ishwara Puri rendered so much service to Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri went on to become the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. So it's a great service. It's a very, very valuable service to help devotees to prepare to leave the world.
It's the most ecstatic service I ever did. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's certainly incredible. It's certainly a very intense service. I know Govinda Maharaj, his whole Bhakti Bringa Govinda Maharaj, he's done this service. I saw him do it for Buddhimanta, when Buddhimanta had brain cancer. You know, Buddhimanta, he had a big, strong American body, and he was really in a lot of pain. He'd be screaming in pain sometimes, and he would nobody could deal with him. Only Govinda Maharaj would come in and grab him, and he could handle him, you know. And they helped him to leave the body in Vrindavan. And then again with Gunagrahi Maharaj. So he did that service very nicely. And we heard Prabhupada give blessing to Brahmananda, right? Brahmananda had taken Prabhupada out of the hospital. Brahmananda had taken, when Prabhupada was in the hospital in New York, Brahmananda took him out. And Brahmananda got the blessing from Prabhupada. He said, you will not die in the hospital. Because you have taken me out of the hospital, you will not die in the hospital. And he didn't. Brahmananda he passed away in Vrindavan. He was getting ready to go to hospital, but he passed away in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada's blessing was there. Any other examples you can think of? Any devotees here? You had any experience helping take care of people, leaving the body?
Yes, Maharaj, I had an experience with this. I helped my mother to leave her body because she has also cancer. And I was praying to Kṛṣṇa that I can be with her when she will leave her body. And but it was impossible to go for me to the place where she was lived. But one day I went there, and it looks that she's well, badly, and I said just to the doctors, please let me here. I'm a priest. I will read my mother from religious scriptures. And they let me there after they closed the hospital. So, and I was chanting with her and reading Kṛṣṇa book to her, and in that mood she left the body. And when she was leaving the body, I was really loudly chanting the holy name of the Lord. So yes, it was very intense experience.
Very nice. That was a very great service. Now, Prabhupada writes in the purport, he said it's the duty of human beings to leave the body like Bishma. He said we don't want to leave like animals. We want to leave the body. We should leave the body like Bishma left the body. Yes? Any other points?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I please share?
Yes, please do.
Like I remember, even in our childhood, when my grandfather left his body, like all the people in the village come to the house, and then everyone just only chant. There is no other talking. Everyone is just chanting. So how Srila Prabhupada has given us that culture, which is lost now. So I remember when my grandfather, grandmother, when they all left, like we were small children, but everyone told us, no, sit and chant, sit and chant. So it was just chanting that was going on in the house.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. And they would chant Maha Mantra?
Yes, Maharaj. Mainly the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or maybe Narayana, but mainly it was Hare Krishna.
Wow, very nice.
And I was also thinking about the Mataji in Scotland who left the body. That book is there, Simple for the Simple, Puri Maharaj's wife.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so in that book it is mentioned about Palindri Mataji who took care of her for the last time. And then I was thinking what happened to her, the devotee who served the Mataji. And then when we went to Govardhan, we saw that she lives in Govardhan. So she got shelter of Govardhan, and she doesn't leave. Yes. At that Radha Banbihari temple, the Mataji who takes care of the temple, she is Palindri Mataji. And then I saw that she is the one who served the Mataji. So I was thinking how serving a devotee, Kṛṣṇa gave her shelter in Govardhan.
Yes.
Near Kusum Sarovar, just next to Kusum Sarovar.
Right. Yeah, I know that place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mataji. Very nice. Okay, we'll go ahead. Let's see. Would someone like to read for us, please?
At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left. Thus he became silent and his breathing stopped.
All right. This is a glorious departure of Grandfather Bhishma. And of course, Haridas Thakur, his departure is also compared to the passing away of Grandfather Bhishma. And Haridas Thakur, how did he leave? He left in Kirtan, right? Lord Chaitanya came and all the devotees, and they had a big Kirtan. And Haridas Thakur held Lord Chaitanya's feet on his head and gave up his body, just like that. So this is a parallel to Grandfather Bhishma's departure. And we have so many examples. We have Srila Prabhupada's own example, how Prabhupada came to Vrindavan and how he had all the devotees, the devotees would come and tell him what preaching they were doing. Prabhupada would feel happy to see the books printed and to hear the book distribution scores. And Prabhupada would also, he always wanted kirtan. I had the experience, we were doing kirtan in Prabhupada's room in Bombay, in Juhu there, and the devotee I was with, he started to chant Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Prabhupada opened his eyes, looked at us and said, just chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada just wanted to hear the Hare Krishna mantra, didn't want anything else. So that was one significant instruction I got from Prabhupada.
Maharaj, could I make a small comment?
Yes.
Oftentimes, because of the particularly Western culture, death is considered a real tragic event. But for the Vaishnavas, it's actually a very blissful event. I mean, there's that feeling of separation, but I know with the experience with my friend Nirguna, it was like the atmosphere was just surcharged with bliss, and it was so auspicious.
Wow, really? How long had he been there?
He was 2.5 months in Mayapur, and I went to teach Nectar of Instruction in the VIH. My wife called me on Radhastami and said, you should come back immediately, otherwise you won't see Nirguna. But he lasted quite a bit longer. And it was just, the first BBT photo that he saw of Krishna was on a Back to Godhead magazine of Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill. And so he's very attached to that. So we had a special Govardhan Puja. This was in the first MI classroom on the ground floor. This is where he left. We had all these BBT photos on the ceiling that he could see. And so we had a big Govardhan Puja. We had a Govardhan Hill that devotees built, and it was just ecstatic. And then he left. I can't remember the date now, but it was like maybe a week after Govardhan Puja, something like that.
Were you with him when he left?
I just came downstairs, because I was upstairs in my office making arrangements with the government so that his body could be cremated. And I came down and he just made his last breath. Just as I entered the room, there's ecstatic kirtan going on. And But yeah, it was amazing. We had an all-night kirtan. Kṛṣṇa, the cook, he was roommates with Nirguna like a couple years before in the Polish tour. And both of their wives left them. And then they had this kind of, they connected in a very deep way. And he's a credible kirtan leader. Usually we think of him as a cook, but he's a great kirtan leader. And he was leading the kirtan through half the night.
Kṛṣṇa.
Kṛṣṇa, yeah. Really
Great
good.
kirtan leader.
Yeah, super good.
Wow.
And, the whole room, that first MI classroom, it was 16 by 20 foot. We had about 85, 90 devotees in there at the time of Nirguna's departure.
Whoa.
It was really an experience, a completely blissful one. And, just one miracle after another would take place. The night before, I'll tell you a little of this story. Jayapataka Swami was his GBC. He was temple president at the farm in Tennessee. And he had also married Jayapataka Swami's disciple. And then he was Sankirtan leader in Atlanta towards the end of his life. And so I arranged for him to speak with him on the phone. So like the night before he left, I went to Nirguna because I found Jayapataka Swami, located him in Los Angeles. And so I told Nirguna in 5 minutes, Maharaj will talk to you. And Nirguna, he kind of like pushed me away. It was like, I just had this energy, like he didn't want to talk. And so Grahila, the Prabhupada disciple who was an indexer for the BBT.
Yeah.
He was massaging his legs at the time, his legs and feet, because if he didn't get that constant, vigorous massage, he would be in excruciating pain. So he was on shift at that time. I went to Grahila and said, what's going on with Nirguna? He said, I don't know, Jamashtami, but I think he's about ready to leave his body. And then, so there was a doctor that Radhanath Swami arranged to come to Mayapur. He was, a specialist in, what do you call it? When someone's, that special medical specialization, when someone's ready to leave.
Hospice care.
Yeah, palliative care, that's it. So he came, I woke him up because he'd already taken a rest, and he checked his pulse and blood pressure. Yep, just a few hours left. So then we started the all-night kirtan, and then after Mangal Artik, I made an announcement and invited all the devotees to come, and so many came. So it was just like a really blissful experience for everybody, including Nirguna. He was in ecstasy. There's like, I don't want to take all the time, but there was like an amazing miracle that took place, at the end. And he spoke with Harisari about it. Harisari wrote about it. It's still on Dandavats, the passing pastime.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Very interesting. Certainly, devotees leaving the body is something which we all have an opportunity to observe, and we'll have to also leave the body. All of us, we have a material body. We have to one day leave this body. So we have to prepare. We have to know what to expect, and we have to know what should be done. Oh, next quote, 944. Bhīṣmadeva, as a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets, where the Lord, in his eternal form as Parthasarati, predominates over the unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada quotes. Someone can read this one?
The unique situation at Bhīṣmadeva's time of death can be attained even though Lord Kṛṣṇa may not be personally present. His words of the Bhagavad Gita or those of Srimad Bhagavatam are identical with the Lord. They are sound incarnation of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to be entitled to attain the stage of Bhīṣmadeva. The human form of life is especially meant for dying like Bhīṣmadeva.
Oh yes, here's this quote. The human form of life is meant for dying like Bhīṣmadeva. Okay, we have to get ready. I don't know, maybe, do we have to fill our bodies with arrows also? But Prabhupada mentions sound incarnations, very important. The words Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, very potent, very powerful for us. So before leaving the body, really want to absorb the mind and hearing this kind of spiritual sound vibration. So it's very good. At this time we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Vaibhava, all of this. It helps us so much to focus our attention on the scriptures, because at the time of death, this is so important. It gives us something to remember. Yes, read.
In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begins from his dealing with the Pandavas. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scripture, and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development.
Right. One more.
One should not consider that the Lord's dealing with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to the all mundane attachment. In all above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances.
Jai. Krishna is a hero. So we don't just focus on the gopis. We're also hearing about the Pandavas. We hear also Shristi Tattva, creation. We have to hear everything about the Lord. It's all transcendental. Okay, here's an exercise for you. Just take a minute or two. Just think, maybe discuss with a partner if you can. If you have a partner, you can discuss.
I'll make them into pairs, Maharaj.
Huh?
I'll make them a partner.
Okay, thank you.
Detached and attached to Krishna. The same is with Bhīṣmadeva also. So he is in the opposite party, but still he's feeling that attachment to Krishna. And
No,
Maharaj, yeah, sorry.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maharaj, one more point we found is that Krishna notices everything. So Bhīṣmadeva, the whole life, as you told, that nobody knew much about Bhīṣmadeva. He was just doing his family work and means whatever his promises. But Krishna knew, and at the last moment he did. So whatever we do for our Guru, maybe it's not noticed it, but they are noticing it, and finally they will give mercy on us.
Jai.
Thank you, Hari.
Hare Krishna. Would anyone else like to share?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I'd like to share. We was bringing up the point that bhakti overcomes everything. There is no impediment to bhakti. So even death itself has no, if there's when there's devotion, and actually it can be seen that sometimes death can be very favorable for a devotee's devotion. It's a favorable situation. And sometimes we see that devotees can make an incredible advancement in the last stages, just before death. They can make more advancement than sometimes they make in their whole life. When they
really?
Yeah.
Have you seen something like? Have you seen some examples?
I wouldn't say I have directly seen it, but I've read that book that Mother mentioned called Simple for the Simple. And it gives accounts there how Ratnaranjini is the mother's name. She was having realizations of her relationship with Kṛṣṇa and her Pacific service. So details were revealed, and that all happened in the last few weeks of life. Because we might say, you know, obviously when death is coming, then one's material attachments become obviously futile. So then you have no choice but to take complete shelter of Kṛṣṇa, and from that comes wonderful realizations.
Thank you. Very nice.
When my friend Nirguna Prabhu left his body, there was no question about him, just his spiritual advancement just accelerating like incredibly. Just very perceivable by those that were around him.
In what ways you saw the spiritual advancement?
It's just gosh, you know, I don't think we got the time, but there's a pastime that took place that's remarkable of his aspiration spiritually, you know, to it would take the rest of the class for me to
Okay,
talk.
another time you can tell me when I meet you privately. I want to hear. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll just go on with the slide, but I think there's just another slide or two just to finish the class. Let's see. Can everyone see the slide?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, that's the one we
Okay.
did.
Okay, quote from Prabhupada. In the Bhagavatam, you will find everything: politics, sociology, religion, culture, philosophy, science, everything you will find. It is not simply dogmatic, some miracles. No, it is not like that. It is a great science. Therefore, in the beginning, it is said, Nigama Kalpa Taror Galatam Palam. Right? Nigama means the Vedic literature. Nigama, so the essence, the quintessence of Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, from Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Mayapur, 1949. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
All right, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Maharaji, can I ask one question?
Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaji, when some devotee asked that how should we, His Grace Mahavir Rupa Prabhu asked that how can we prepare for the end, and you told that we should just observe in the service and we should try not to waste even a moment. But when Maharaji doing, actually we try to do it, then in that case, still so many anarthas, they come, and because of that mind dragged here and there, and also we waste so much time also, and we don't have efficiency also in our service. So what will be our condition in that case, Maharaj?
Well, it will depend a lot on what is our consciousness, how much we're actually, you know, really absorbing and giving ourselves to Kṛṣṇa. We may have problems, we may have difficulties in focusing fully on Kṛṣṇa's service, but if the motive is there to want to please Kṛṣṇa, and if we're strictly following the regulative principles and chanting every day, doing the chanting minimum 16 rounds, Prabhupada said, Kṛṣṇa will force himself into our minds at the time of death and take us back to Godhead. So Prabhupada had said like that. Devotee said, Prabhupada, you know, he said, you know, I just can't think of Kṛṣṇa. I'm a devotee, I'm doing my rounds and I'm following the principles, but difficult for me to focus my concentration on Kṛṣṇa. So Prabhupada just told him, he said, you just go ahead, you keep doing this, you keep chanting and do everything you're supposed to do. At the time of death, Kṛṣṇa will force himself into your mind and take you back to Godhead. So we're really dependent on the mercy of Krishna. Like Krishna says in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he said, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So Krishna comes on the back of Garuda to pick us up from the ocean of this material existence. We're entangled, we're caught up. We see the example of Bhīṣmadeva. He had so many things. He was also, a worldly person, but then it was arranged, Krishna arranged at the end of his life, he could just stop everything, put aside everything, and Krishna personally came there, and Bhishma could fully absorb himself in Krishna consciousness. So Janmashtami also quoted how Prabhupada had told Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was saying, I'm doing all this work for building the temple in Bombay, so many laws of the municipality, it's all mundane, I just want to study your books. But Prabhupada said, you build the temple. And Prabhupada told Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he told Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he wanted to, he's a Manipuri, and he wanted to think about Rasa Lila. And Prabhupada said, you preach to the scientists that life comes from life, and Krishna will reveal your rasa to you. You don't have to worry what is your rasa. You just preach to these scientists the real origin of life, and Krishna will reveal your rasa. So like that, we have to understand Prabhupada's mood. He encouraged always service, not to just, what is my rasa? What is my lila with Krishna? But we're not worried for that. Prabhupada wanted to know, how many books have you distributed? How many properties have you acquired? How many devotees have you made? Prabhupada was very practical. So like that, we have to focus our mind, concentration, try to please Prabhupada. And if we please Prabhupada, then certainly Krishna will be pleased. Any other question, comment?
Thank you, Maharaj.
What you just said, Maharaj, kind of supports this point about we can reflect upon the services we've done for Prabhupada's mission, at the end, and get real nourishment from that in our relationship with Krishna. It's not that we don't hear, and we read Prabhupada's books, certainly, we hear.
I'm just finishing. Yeah.
But we can also reflect in this way. And because that was certainly what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to work so hard. It was amazing. I was like, pretty much, you know me, Maharaj, I was pretty much on a nonstop marathon. My whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj pushed me, I am pushing you. So we have to push others. We have to push. He said, this is the parampara. You keep pushing. If you don't push, if we don't work like madmen, we won't get anywhere, we won't do anything. So we have to keep going. You have to keep active thinking how to do it, how to do more. What to be done. Never a time to sit back. Okay. Any other comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you mentioned regarding the query just now that we have to please Srila Prabhupada, focusing on the number of books that we distribute and the number of devotees that we make. But in an earlier session, what I understood is that we cannot distribute the books on our own, because we may attempt to distribute the books or attempt to make devotees. It is not in our control. We cannot, like suppose if I contact 100 people, maybe only one person may become a devotee. So the result is not in our hands. So in that case, how to basically please Prabhupada? Is it that we attempt to reach out more and more people so that they can be into the devotional service, or is it the number of books or the number of devotees that we make?
Yes, it's not just the number of books, number of devotees we make, but it's our mood and our focus, that our desire, that we want to give Krishna consciousness. Of course, why do we want to distribute books? We want to bring people into Krishna consciousness. I remember Prabhupada telling Tripurari, I was in New York at the time, and Prabhupada told Tripurari he was the incarnation of book distribution. And he said, people should want to take the book. Do not force them. So sometimes, you know, we got a bad name because we were so forceful. Nowadays, of course, we give away a lot of books free. A lot of book distribution is just done freely. We give out the books because we have a big congregation, and the congregation donate for the books to be distributed freely. And so a lot of books are going out, but the people who get the books, not necessarily interested. But still, we want to distribute the books because we hope that they will find, that eventually somebody who is interested will find the book. So yeah, the mood is important, the mood that we want to give Krishna consciousness. That's Prabhupada's point, you know. He didn't, you know, in Prabhupada's time, everyone was in the temple. It was an ashram-based society. So Prabhupada didn't want us sitting around. So he was concerned, you know, how much property have you got? How many devotees have you made? How many books did you distribute? That was, at that time, the focus was like that. Nowadays, the focus is a little different, you see. Nowadays, we try to put more focus, not only just book distribution, but we want to also educate devotees. We try to educate, get devotees to actually read Prabhupada's books. There's a lot of work going on trying to encourage people to read, because we do find that, you know, people for a long time were not reading. And we need to encourage the devotees to read Prabhupada's books and read them and study them as well carefully. So the different courses which we have, they all help to educate people. And if people really understand this knowledge, then they'll never forget it. That's a fact. If they really understand it, they'll never forget it. And so this is very important for us. It's not just only making devotees, but we want also people who will stay devotees, that they will give their whole life. They will come into Krishna consciousness, they'll be committed. They'll never go away. People come and go, give up the principles. Not good. And so we want to have quality devotees. Yeah, we do like to have property as well, but we have to be able to take care of it. You don't just only want property. If there's nobody there, nobody living there, have a big building, many deities, and nobody there to take care of them, it's not very good. It's not what we want. The temple should be active. There should be programs, regular classes, lectures, kirtans going on. Temple shouldn't be empty. And temples are meant for everyone, not just only Indian, not just Hindus, for everyone. If we have only Hindus, then our movement is not successful. Prabhupada wanted everybody to take up Krishna consciousness. Give the message to the world. So we don't just only preach to Indian people, we want to preach to everyone, everywhere. So translating the books into all the languages of the world, very important. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
Any other comment? Anyone?
I got a comment. I want to thank you for such a wonderful unit, Maharaj, and we're looking forward to the next unit with you.
Okay. Okay, so I'll leave you to it, and I'll see you next Sunday, because next Saturday you have to do some class exam or something.
Assessment, yeah.
Assessment. Okay, so I'll meet you next Sunday. Okay,
Right.
thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guruji.